Hello folks, finally the guide for the new weekly boss Scaramouche or Balladeer. This boss unlocks after finishing the entire Archon quest in version 3.2. And before I start, I want to show a little neat Easter egg. If Scaramouche defeats Raiden Shogun, he has two different lines that he says.
Your shadow has faded, Beelzebul.
Oh, and for this fight, you want to bring at least one archer or caster that is not Electro and not Hydro.
Godhood is mine now, Beelzebul.
It will help you a lot in the last part of the fight. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. In phase 1, the arena has 6 nodes on the ground. 2 Electro, 1 Anemo, Hydro, Pyro, and Cryo. The Hydro one heals you, which is useless. Get out of here, Wolfie. The Pyro and Cryo clears up the fire and ice on the floor, but those don't do that much damage, so it's not that helpful. The Hydro, ignore the Hydro. The Electros are the most important. You want to activate both of them in a short time to stun the boss. To activate a node, you need to grab crystals to charge up your pet. When it's fully charged, stand on top of the node you want and push T to use it. And during phase 1, you can attack the boss's arms and body with both range and melee attacks. I prefer to use range attacks since you can hit the boss from anywhere, but if you're melee, go for the body since it's much easier to hit. The arms move around so you can miss depending on the boss's position. And there are 2 types of crystals that charge up your pet. 1 large crystal will fully charge your pet, as well as 2 small crystals. So let's begin with the fire and ice. You see them on the ground right now, and they only do a couple hundred damage. It's very little and you should ignore them. I think it's a waste to use your charge on them. But here's what happens if you do. If I use it on the Cryo, it clears away all the fire stuff. And if I activate the Pyro node, it clears all the ice stuff. But the boss will keep using attacks to put more ice and fire on the ground, so it's a waste to try to get rid of it. What you really want to do is to activate the Electro nodes. When you activate one of them, the boss will be semi-stunned and start shooting lightning down. The lightning have pretty big AoE, but you can use the iframes from your dash to avoid the strike. And they also spawn small crystals. So what you want to do here is to grab 2 small crystals to activate the second Electro node. When you activate both nodes, you also get one of the secret achievements. It all comes tumbling down. If you don't burst it down, it usually follows up with this huge Electro beam, and that's where the Anemo node comes in play. If you left extra crystals on the ground before activating the second Electro node, you can have a charge ready for the Anemo. This creates a wind current that you can use to glide off the ground to avoid this beam. You can also avoid this attack just by having Venti. Holding his E will do the same thing and you can just glide until the beam's gone. Zhongli's strong shield will also stop the damage, but other shields will be too weak and your active character will take a lot of damage or might even die outright. So that explains all the useful nodes. Now for the rest of the boss's attacks. For Electro Missiles, the boss shoots a large barrage of them, and you can stay far away to avoid it, since it's usually concentrated in the center. After the barrage, the boss shoots 2 large pyramids that have homing effects. Wait until the tracking stops and then quickly dash away to avoid them. The last Electro attack in phase 1 is the merry-go-round. Your dash can go through the beams, but you cannot dash non-stop. So after dashing through one beam, walk to the right a little to recharge, and then dash again. Repeat this until the lasers are done. Now for his fire and ice attacks. There's 2 versions. One is a sweep and then a slam that you see here, and then the other is just a slam. He can do this with either hand, and it's pretty much the same effect, just different colors. When you see a hand glow, just run to the opposite side of the arena. Your running distance is shorter when you're closer to the boss, so that's one benefit of being melee.
Insignificant past!
And the final attack in phase 1 are the Anemo Whirlpools. The boss spawns some wind that has very strong vacuum effects. Get right next to the boss to not get sucked in. After a little bit, the boss will swirl them with Hydro and create whirlpools. If you see them coming closer, just move a little to the side to avoid it. And that's pretty much all the attacks of phase 1. Just keep attacking the boss and use the 2 Electronodes to disable him, then use your strongest rotation to take it down. All the attacks are pretty easy to avoid once you get used to it. Now on to phase 2. This time your pet is still with you and it will shoot bullets the entire time. I will talk about the pet after going through the boss's attack. First off, he does a stomp, slam, and create a shockwave. This has a pretty small radius around him, and the shockwave you can just jump over. Here's a similar attack, but this time he plunges the ground with the sword. It creates a much bigger AoE, but there's no shockwave this time. The thing about phase 2 is you won't be doing direct damage to the boss, so just stay away from it as much as you can to avoid most of these attacks. He also has a fire and ice tackle where he teleports to the other side of the arena then charges at you. Once again, just stay away from the boss on the far end and dash to the side. The X attack comes out pretty quickly. If you're in the center of it, dash to the side to a safe spot. If you're far away, then stay far away and avoid the indicators on the ground. Now we can talk about the pet and the crystals. Yes, the crystals are back in phase 2. You will need to grab them to charge up a huge Dendro Bomb to hit the boss. Using the bomb is optional, but it does make the fight faster since it does a lot of shield damage. Another attack the boss does is summon some junks that has different elements on it, and they will blow up after some time. If you hit them with other elements, you can destroy the junk and it will spawn a crystal, letting you charge up your Dendro Bomb faster. Just hit these scraps with any element besides its own element. And after fully charging your pet, you gain the Dendro Bomb. This temporarily replaces your elemental skill, so use the E button to use the bomb. Hold E to aim the Dendro Bomb. If you hit the boss, it does a huge chunk of shield damage. And don't worry too much about aiming. If you miss the Dendro Bomb, you'll still keep the charge, so you can keep shooting again and again until you finally hit the boss. And here's a very fancy looking attack. The Electro Storm looks dangerous at first, but it's very easy to dodge. It just creates a huge circle on the ground that follows you very slowly. Just stay outside the circle to avoid damage. And you don't even need to run. You can just walk, and look how slow the circle is going. It's actually the same as my walk speed. I suggest walking instead of running so you can save your stamina for the electro beams that comes after. When you see a beam on you, dash away to avoid it. And once you destroy the boss's shield, it will use a final Spirit Bomb attack. He will also summon 3 Electro Drones and a turret on the ground. To defeat the boss, you will need to destroy all 4. And this is why we bring our Archer or Caster that's not Electro or Hydro, since those 2 elements plus physical does not damage these drones. It's hard to hit the drones with melee attacks, but the Caster's auto attack can reach them pretty easily. So if you bring a Caster, you'll be fighting a little bit closer to hit them with auto attack. If you bring an Archer, you can stay pretty far away and hit the drones with charge shots. Just watch out for the turret that's shooting at you. It's easier to kill the 3 drones first, then handle the turret after, since the turret is tankier. And here's the second secret achievement. You need to get hit by the Spirit Bomb. Just don't collect all 4 crystals and let the boss gather all of Pavot's energy. It's pretty weird that HoYoVerse wants one of your characters to faint to get 10 Primo Gems. Anyway, back to actually defeating the boss. When you defeat all the drones, collect the 4 crystals and shoot the boss with one final Dendro Bomb. This will spawn a platform and 2 tethers. When you go up to the platform, your elemental burst will refresh, so you can unload with your strongest attacks on the boss. You do have a lot of time, so try to defeat it in one rotation. If you don't do enough damage to defeat the boss, you'll just repeat phase 2 again. And that's pretty much the whole fight. Now for a quick video of one of my kills. I'll go through my thought process while this video runs. So my carry is Yoimiya, that means I'll be using a lot of range attack. I'll just start hitting the boss right away, and I see it's using the electro arrows, so I back off a little to avoid it. Once I avoid the homing attack, I continue shooting the boss. Now I see his hand is glowing, so I go to the other side, and I collect the crystals along the way. I see a large crystal there, so I can activate both Electro nodes right away, so I pick this opening to do so. And I know my team is strong enough to defeat the boss in one stun. Now on to phase 2. Not much to do here except wait until the crystals spawn, so I'm just focusing on avoiding attack. And when I do see a crystal, I use the tether to grab it quickly.
Burn to oblivion!
And if I get a chance, I'll destroy the scraps to fill up my gauge faster so I can remove the shield quicker. Phase 2 is pretty simple, just stay away from the boss and dodge the attacks that come. And here comes my favorite attack, the Electro Storm. It's very flashy looking, but it's not dangerous at all. When I first started, I kept dashing away from the circle, but I found out you can just walk and avoid it as well, saving you stamina for the dangerous beams that come after.
Adventure time.
Burn to oblivion!
And now for the Spirit Bomb. Since Yoimiya can make her normal attacks be elemental, I can just stay near all the enemies and shoot them down real quick. Gather the final crystals to shoot my final Dendro Bomb.
Not possible.
And head up to the platform to defeat the boss. This boss was pretty fun and very interesting. It's not just a tank and spank. We finally have another boss with some decent mechanics. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you enjoy the boss as much as me. That's all for now, and remember, have fun out there, traveler.